Chapter 1. The Watcher's Captain Varish of the Talaran Exploration Corps prided herself on patience. For 43 cycles, she had commanded the research vessel Whisper of Dawn, cataloging primitive species across 17 star systems. None had proven more fascinating or more paradoxical than the bipedal mammals of Sol-3 Earth, they called it. A blue marble wrapped in white clouds, teeming with the species that built cities while waging wars, composed symphonies while engineering weapons, reached for the stars while poisoning their own atmosphere. Captain, the stellar array shows another fluctuation, her science officer Marin announced from his console. The bridge of the Whisper hummed with the quiet efficiency of Talaran. Technology crystalline displays that floated in mid-air. Bioorganic interfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. Varish approached the holographic display, showing their current position. Hidden within the corona of a dying red giant. 3 light years from Sol, the perfect vantage point for observation. The perfect distance to remain undetected. Standard variance or something more? She asked. Marin's facial chromatophores flickered yellow concern. The harmonics are irregular. The star is more unstable than our initial surveys indicated. Noted. Continue monitoring. Varish returned to her command chair, its living material adjusting to her form. She pulled up her personal logs, reviewing decades of Earth observations. The humans remained fragmented hundreds of nations, thousands of cultures, millions of conflicting ideologies. Their technology advanced in spurts, brilliant innovations followed by decades of stagnation. They had split the atom, but still burned fossil fuels. They had touched their own moon, but couldn't feed all their people. Charmingly primitive, the Galactic consensus had labeled them. Another millennium, perhaps 2, before they'd be ready for contact. Varish had concurred in her reports. Earth wasn't ready. Humanity wasn't ready. She had been so certain. Chapter 2. The trap, the stellar flare erupted without warning. One moment, the Whisper of Dawn floated serenely in the star's outer corona. The next, alarms shrieked across every system as a plasma wave, impossibly massive, impossibly fast, engulfed them. Emergency power to shields, Varish commanded, gripping her armrests as the ship bucked. The holographic displays flickered, died, rebooted in emergency mode. Through the forward viewport, the universe turned into a hellscape of burning radiation. Shields at 40% and falling. Marin shouted over the chaos. Hull temperature rising beyond tolerance. Engines get us out of here. Propulsion offline. The plasma is scrambling our drive matrices. Varish's mind raced through options, each one evaporating as quickly as it formed. They were trapped. The flare had somehow targeted their position. No, not targeted. They had simply been catastrophically unlucky. The star's death throes had found them. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, another officer reported. Environmental systems failing. Around the bridge, her crew of 23 worked with desperate efficiency. The Talaran were an old species, refined by millennia of civilization. They didn't panic. They didn't scream. But Varish saw the truth in their rapidly shifting chromatophores, the yellows of fear, the grays of despair. Time until shields collapse? She asked quietly. 2 hours, Marin said. Perhaps 3 if we shut down all non-essential systems. And time until the flare passes? Silence. Then 7 hours, minimum. Mathematics had never seemed so cruel. Varish stood, smoothing her uniform, a gesture of composure her crew needed to see. Options. We could eject the research data, her first officer suggested. Launch it on a buoy toward Talaran space. Our findings wouldn't be lost. 6 light years at standard buoy speed, Marin calculated. 43 years to reach home. Varish walked to the viewport, watching plasma storms rage across the dying star's surface. 43 years. Her life's work would outlive her by decades. Her crew would become a footnote casualties of exploration, honored but forgotten. There is another option, Marin said hesitantly. Everyone turned to him. We could broadcast a general distress signal. Open channel, all frequencies, exposing ourselves. The first officer's chromatophores flashed red shock. Revealing our presence to uncontacted species? That violates every protocol of the consensus. So does dying with actionable intelligence, Marin countered. We're 3 light years from Sol. If we're going to break protocol, we might as well be practical about it. Varish considered this. The Galactic consensus maintained strict rules about contacting developing civilizations. But those rules had been written by species safe in their home systems, not trapped in the corona of an exploding star. The humans have primitive radio technology, she said slowly, but nothing capable of reaching us in time, even if they detected the signal. There are 14 other star systems within 5 light years, Marin said. 3 have warp-capable species. The Vendrix Corporate Collective patrols this sector. Someone might hear us. Might, a fragile word to hang 23 lives upon. If we broadcast, Varish said, we risk exposing not just ourselves, but every species we've observed. The humans included. Captain, Marin's voice was gentle. We're going to die. The only question is whether we die silent or whether we at least try. Varish looked at her crew. Young scientist Kara, who had joined them only 2 cycles ago, full of enthusiasm. Engineer Thalis, who had a mate and 3 offspring waiting on the homeworld. Marin himself, who had served with her for 20 years and deserved better than this random, meaningless end. Draft the message, she ordered. Mathematical peace greeting. Our coordinates. Statement of distress. Emphasize peaceful intentions. And if someone hostile responds? The first officer asked. Varish attempted what humans called a smile. She'd studied their expressions extensively. Then at least we'll die meeting someone new. Chapter 3. Earth hears Lieutenant Commander Sarah Shun. Had been staring at the same radio telescope data for 3 hours when the universe changed. Arecibo Deep Space Monitoring. Station rebuilt after the 2020. Collapse and expanded into a global network captured. Signals from across the electromagnetic spectrum. Most were natural phenomena. Pulsars spinning, black holes feeding, stars being born and dying. Occasionally, human satellites. Very occasionally, classified military chatter that shouldn't have been on those frequencies. Never, in Sarah's 15-year career, had she seen anything like this. Replay it, she ordered her night shift team. Audio and visual. The signal cascaded across her screens, a mathematical sequence of prime numbers, followed by what could only be coordinates, followed by carrier waves modulating in patterns that made her hands shake. It's artificial, her deputy, Marcus, whispered. Sarah, it's definitely artificial. Run it through every decryption protocol we have. Cross-reference with SETI databases. And someone get me Director Kahale, now. The next 20 minutes became a blur. Phone calls escalated through chains of command that Sarah had only seen on organizational charts. Director Kahale arrived by helicopter. Someone woke up the Secretary of Defense. A video conference materialized on the main screen, showing faces Sarah recognized from news. Broadcasts people who made decisions about nations and wars and the future of humanity. You're certain? General Morrison asked from somewhere in the Pentagon. The signal contains embedded mathematical proofs, Sarah explained, knowing how insane she sounded. Prime number sequences, fundamental constants, and what our linguistics AI identifies as a greeting structure. Then coordinates pointing to a location 3 light years away, near a dying red giant. And then she played the final section. Even without translation, the urgency was unmistakable. The tone, The repetition. The increasing frequency. It was a universal sound. Asterisk, they're in trouble, Director Kahali said quietly. They're 3 light years away. Someone from NASA interjected via video link. Even if we wanted to help, our fastest probe would take. What, 40,000 years? Sarah watched the faces on her screen. She saw the calculations happening behind their eyes, political, practical, physical. 3 light years might as well be 3 million. Then Admiral Chun appeared on the screen. No relation to Sarah, but she'd heard of him, the mysterious officer who ran Earth Defense Command's Deep Space Division. The unit everyone knew existed, but nobody talked about. How long ago was the signal sent? He asked, based on propagation speed and source distance. Approximately 6 hours ago, Sarah replied. Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment. Then, initiate protocol Shepard. The screen erupted in protests. Sarah heard phrases like, unauthorized, not approved, security breach. But Admiral Chun simply waited until the chaos settled. Someone sent a distress signal, he said calmly. Someone reached across the void and asked for help. If humanity's first message to the cosmos is silence. He paused. Then we don't deserve to join it. Admiral, we don't have the capability, the NASA administrator began. Yes, Admiral Chun interrupted. We do. He entered a command. Sarah's screens flickered and filled with data she didn't have clearance to see. Schematics, coordinates, energy signatures. Behind Jupiter's shadow, 12 massive shapes began to move. Signal back, Admiral Chun ordered. Tell them, message received. Help is coming. Sarah's hands trembled as she composed the response. She broadcast it toward the dying star, toward whatever desperate souls waited there, and wondered if she'd just changed the course of human history. 3 light years away, Captain Varish stared at her console in disbelief as a response arrived after only 6 hours. Impossible. But the message was clear, translated through mathematics into meaning. Hold on. We're coming. Asterisk Chapter 4. The impossible fleet Captain Varish didn't believe in miracles. The Tal'aran had evolved beyond superstition millennia ago, replacing faith with science, prayers with equations. Yet as she stared at the impossible message glowing on her console, she found herself reconsidering ancient philosophies. Hold on. We're coming. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures, Marin announced, his chromatophores cycling through colors so rapidly they became a blur. Bearing, they're coming from Sol System. Impossible. Even if they launched immediately. Physics. Captain, they're here. The whisper of dawn shuddered. Not from stellar radiation this time, but from the gravitational distortions of 12 enormous shapes dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They emerged from folded space like ancient gods materializing from myth. Each vessel was over 2 kilometers long, their hulls a matte black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They weren't sleek like Tal'aran ships, or organic like Vendrick's biocraft. They were brutalist monuments to engineering angular, purposeful, covered in what could only be weapon emplacements and armor plating thick enough to see from a distance. Dreadnoughts. The word appeared in Varish's mind from her studies of human history. Ships designed not for exploration or trade, but for war. They crossed 3 light years in 6 hours, Marin whispered. That's 0.5 C. Nothing travels at 0.5 C. The energy requirements alone. Sir, they're hailing us. The communications officer interrupted. A human face appeared on their main display. Male, late 50s by their aging patterns, with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He wore a dark blue uniform with insignia Varish didn't recognize. This is Admiral James Chun of the Earth Defense Fleet, commanding the rescue task force. His voice was deep, steady, utterly calm despite commanding an armada that had just violated known physics. Talaran vessel Whisper of Dawn, we have received your distress signal. Hold your current position. Do not attempt to move. We are initiating rescue protocols. Varish found her voice. Admiral Chun, I am Captain Varish. We don't understand. How did you... Explanations later, Captain. Right now, my sensors show your shields at 18% and falling. How many crew aboard? 23. Understood? We're going to stabilize your position, then extract your crew. This will look intimidating. Please trust us. The transmission ended. Around the bridge, Varish's crew stared at her with expressions of shock, confusion, and something else hope. They came, young scientist Kara whispered. The primitives came. Through the viewport. The 12 human dreadnoughts moved with choreographed precision. They formed a sphere around the Whisper, each vessel positioning itself at a calculated point. Then, as one, they activated something that made Varish's instruments scream with confusion. Gravitational anchors. Somehow, the humans were generating localized gravity wells, creating a pocket of stable space-time around the Talaran vessel. The stellar radiation that had been tearing them apart began to dissipate, deflected by forces that shouldn't exist. Our shields are stabilizing, Marin reported, disbelief in every syllable. Hull temperature dropping. They're protecting us. One of the dreadnoughts moved close enough that Varish could read the name painted in white across its bow. Mercy of Halifax. Ironic name for a warship, her first officer muttered. Maybe it's not a warship, Varish replied quietly. Chapter 5. Guardians. Not warriors, the human boarding team arrived in vessels that looked like armored shuttles compact, heavily shielded, bristling with thrusters. They clamped onto the Whisper's hull with magnetic locks, and Varish heard the distinctive sound of airlocks engaging. Should we arm ourselves? The first officer asked. Varish considered this. They had ceremonial weapons aboard, mostly relics, as the Talaran had evolved beyond violence. Against whatever was coming through that airlock, they might as well be carrying harsh language. No, she decided. They crossed 3 light years to save us. Let's not greet our rescuers with weapons. The airlock hissed open. What emerged made several of Varish's crew step back involuntarily. The humans wore powered armor-full exoskeletons. That stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in reactive plating and equipped with enough weaponry to conquer a small city. Their helmet visors glowed with tactical displays. Each step they took made the deck plates ring, but the first human to enter raised both hands. Palms forward, a gesture Varish recognized from her studies. Universal peace sign. Then the helmet retracted, revealing a woman's face. Dark skin, warm brown eyes, a scar across her left cheek, and a smile that transformed her from warrior to savior. Captain Varish? I'm Commander Julia Okonkwo, Marine Corps Search and Rescue. She spoke in perfect Talaran, the accent flawless. Sorry about the armor. Radiation protocols. May we come aboard? Varish's translator implant nearly short-circuited. The primitive species she'd been studying for 43 cycles had not only crossed 3 light years in 6 hours, but had learned her language in that same time frame. Please, Varish managed. What followed was the most professionally executed rescue operation Varish had ever witnessed. The human Marines moved through the Whisper with practiced efficiency, scanning each crew member with medical devices, administering first aid where needed, and always asking permission before touching anyone. One Marine knelt beside Kara, who had suffered radiation burns on her arms. Hey there, the human said gently, his armor making soft hydraulic sounds as he moved. I'm Corporal Danis. This is going to sting a bit, okay? But it'll help with the pain. He applied a gel that made Kara's chromatophores flash in surprise, then relief as the burning faded. You came for us, Kara said in halting English. Why? Corporal Davis looked confused by the question. You called for help. But we're strangers. Different species. You didn't know if we were hostile. You sent a peace greeting and asked for help, Davis replied, packing up his medical kit. Everything else is just details. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out. Human Marine soldiers, trained for war, administering comfort, offering reassurance, treating Talaran crew with a gentleness that contradicted their fearsome appearance. Commander Okongwo found Varish on the bridge, studying the tactical situation. Captain, we need to move your crew to our ships. The stellar flare is intensifying. Your vessel won't survive the next wave, even with our shields helping. And the whisper? Okongwo's expression showed genuine regret. We'll try to save her, but your crew is the priority. Varish looked around her bridge, her home for 4 decades. Every console held memories. Every surface bore the marks of countless hands. But she was a captain, and captains made hard choices. Evacuate everyone, she ordered. I'll be last off. Like hell you will, Okongwo said with a grin. Captain's prerogative is universal, but so is the rescue commander's override. You're coming with the first group. Before Varish could protest, another alarm shrieked. The stellar flare was building toward its peak, a wave that would dwarf the first. All teams, accelerate extraction, Okongwo commanded into her helmet comm. We're out of time. The evacuation became a controlled rush. Human Marines carried. Injured Talaran guided the able-bodied, their armor compensating for the lighter Talaran gravity requirements. Within minutes, Varish found herself aboard one of the human shuttles, watching through a viewport as her ship became smaller. But not all the human vessels were retreating. The Mercy of Halifax moved closer to the Whisper, positioning itself between the Talaran vessel and the star. The dreadnought's shields, already strained from protecting the entire area, began to glow with accumulated radiation. What are they doing? Varish asked, asterisk. The shuttle pilot, a young human woman with lieutenant's bars, answered without taking her eyes off her controls. Buying time to get a tractor lock on your ship. The Halifax can take more punishment than your vessel, but their shields, they'll fail. Yeah, the lieutenant agreed. Probably will. Varish watched in horror as the massive human warship endured radiation that could sterilize a planet. Its shields flickered, sections failing and rerouting. Hull plating began to glow red-hot. But it held position, protecting the Whisper while magnetic tethers locked onto the Talaran vessel's hull. Halifax to rescue Shuttle 7, a voice crackled over the comm. Tell your Talaran passengers we've got their ship. Might have some scorch marks, but she'll fly again. The lieutenant grinned. Copy that, Halifax. Your paint job's going to need work, too. Worth it. Halifax out. As the fleet prepared to jump back to Sol System, Varish realized something profound. The humans hadn't sent warriors. They had sent guardians, beings capable of terrible violence, yes, but who chose instead to shield the defenseless, even at cost to themselves. She had been wrong about humanity. Catastrophically, beautifully wrong. Chapter 6. The truth revealed the human flagship, the USDS Indomitable, was a city in space. As Varish and her crew were brought aboard, she glimpsed hangar bays the size of Talaran settlements, corridors that could accommodate thousands, and technology that made her scientific mind reel with questions. Admiral Chun met them in the medical bay, where human doctors worked alongside advanced AI to treat the Talaran crew. He waited patiently while Varish ensured her people were cared for, then gestured to a nearby observation deck. Captain, may we talk? They stood before a massive viewport, showing the fleet in formation, the rescued Whisper of Dawn nestled safely among giants. Earth hung in the distance, that blue marble Varish had studied for so long. You were watching us, Chun said. It wasn't a question. Varish's chromatophores flushed purple embarrassment. For 43 cycles. From your year 1982 to now. I'm sorry. The Galactic Consensus Protocols require. We know, Chun interrupted gently. We detected your ship 8 years ago. Basic gravitational lensing, really? Once we knew where to look, your stealth systems were obvious. Varish felt her world tilt again. You knew? Captain, humanity learned a hard lesson in the 20th century. The universe doesn't care about your plans. It will surprise you, challenge you, and if you're not prepared, it will kill you. Chun gestured to the dreadnoughts. We found something in 2004. A crash site in the Gobi Desert, old enough that the wreckage had fossilized. Not from your species, someone else, someone ancient. But it taught us 3 things. He held up 3 fingers. 1. We're not alone. 2. Some of our neighbors have technology far beyond ours. 3. Hoping for the best is fine, but preparing for the worst keeps you alive. So you built. This? Varish gestured at the fleet. We built a lot of things. Medical advances from studying alien biology. Power systems reverse-engineered from crashed components. Faster-than-light drives that probably violate 6 laws of physics, but work anyway. Chun smiled. And yes, we built the defense fleet, not to invade, not to conquer, but to make sure that when the universe knocked on our door, whether with hostility or hope, we'd be ready to answer. The distress signal ... double quotes Varish began. You asked for help. That's all we needed to hear. Chun's expression grew serious. My grandparents were refugees, Captain. Fled China in '49 with nothing but what they could carry. They told me stories about the people who helped them, strangers who had no reason to care, but did anyway. I learned that the measure of civilization isn't how you treat the powerful. It's how you respond when someone powerless asks for help. Varish looked at the Earth, reimagining everything she thought she knew. We labeled you primitive, divided, dangerous. We are divided, Chun acknowledged. We argue, compete, sometimes fight. But we also help, protect, sacrifice for strangers. He pointed to the Mercy of Halifax, its hull still radiating heat from the rescue. That ship is named for an explosion in 1917, a harbor disaster that could have killed thousands. But the people of Halifax, civilians, soldiers, sailors, they rushed toward the danger to save whoever they could. That's humanity, Captain. We run toward the fire. Your crew risked their lives for us. They didn't risk anything, Chun corrected. They knew exactly what they were doing. That's not risk, that's choice. A chime sounded. Chun checked a display on his wrist. Captain, I'm told your ship will need repairs. Your crew needs rest, and you probably have about 10,000 questions. Closer to 10 million, Varish admitted. Fair enough. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. We'll provide medical care, ship repairs, and when you're ready, safe passage wherever you want to go. He paused. But first, there's someone who wants to meet you. Chun led her to a communication suite, where a holographic display showed dozens of faces, human faces, of different ages, colors, and backgrounds. Scientists, politicians, military officers, and civilians. Captain Varish, Chun said formally. Allow me to introduce you to Earth. Earth. This is Captain Varish of the Terran Exploration Corps. Our first contact with an advanced species. And proof that we're not alone in the universe. It's an honor, an elderly human woman said. Varish's translator identified her as Dr. Eleanor Sato, Secretary General of the United Nations. We have much to learn from each other. The honor is ours, Varish replied, and meant it. You saved our lives when you had every reason not to, when you could have remained hidden. You revealed yourselves to help strangers. Actually, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun appeared on the display, the woman who had first detected the distress signal. We've been hoping to meet you for years. We just didn't know how to say hello without seeming creepy. Laughter rippled through both species, a universal sound of shared relief. Epilogue. Thunder is promised 3 weeks later. The Whisper of Dawn departed Earth orbit, her hull repaired and upgraded with human technology gifted freely. Captain Varish stood on her bridge, familiar yet changed, like everything in her life now. Course laid in for Talaran space, Marin reported. Estimated arrival, 42 days. Strange to use FTL coordinates instead of decades. Strange, Varish agreed. But welcome. On the main display, Earth rotated peacefully. Around it, the 12 dreadnoughts had returned to their station, behind Jupiter's shadow visible now to Talaran sensors. A promise rather than a threat. Admiral Chun's final words echoed in her mind. Go home, Captain. Tell your people what you found here. Not weapons or warriors, but a species that believes in showing up when called. The galaxy needs to understand. Humanity doesn't come to conquer. We come prepared. Varish began composing her report to the Galactic consensus. It would change everything: protocols, policies, the entire framework of first contact. Because humanity had proven something profound, advanced technology meant nothing without the will to use it for good. True strength wasn't measured in weapons, but in the choice to protect rather than destroy. And civilization's highest achievement wasn't reaching the stars. It was extending a hand to those who fell along the way. Captain, we're ready to jump, Marin announced. Take us home, Varish ordered. We have quite a story to tell. As the Whisper leapt into faster-than-light travel, she looked back one last time at Sol System. The dreadnoughts remained silent sentinels, guardians waiting for the next call dot. When that call came, Varish knew. Humanity would answer, not with silence, not with hesitation, but with thunder that protected rather than destroyed. Throughout the galaxy, word began to spread. A new species had announced itself, not through conquest or commerce, but through a rescue mission that defied physics and expectations. They were called humans, and they had a simple philosophy. When someone calls for help, you answer, and when you answer, you bring everything you have, because in the vast, cold universe, the only thing that mattered was showing up for each other. Species, language, and distance were just details. What mattered was the choice to run toward the fire, to shield the defenseless, to turn weapons of war into instruments of mercy. Earth had sent 12 dreadnoughts to answer one distress call. The galaxy would remember that, and it would change everything. Asterisk.